Masters of the Universe, the Legends of Grayskull podcast.
Legends of Grayskull is a fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Sean Scavarna and Matthew Duke as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Etheria, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go. Get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride. Right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to L.O.G on MYP. I'm Matthew Duch. That's Curtis Ackerman.
Trying to figure out all the letters.
Did you figure it out?
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
perfect.
We're good.
So this is Legends of Grayskull on Mike Young Productions, He-Man and the Master Universe 2002 cartoon series. Curtis and I, we're going to go through every episode of the MYP series, starting from episode 1 and going to episode 39. So we are currently on the beginning, part 3. This was episode 3 of the He-Man series. It originally premiered on August 16th, 2002. It was directed by Gary Hartel and written by Dean Stefan. Curtis.
Yes.
Are you ready to finish the beginning?
Absolutely. I'm ready to get done with this 3-parter and get into some more individual episodes that I don't have to remember which one's which.
So that's an interesting note there. So I know you've discovered this years later, but when it first premiered, the entire 3 parts dropped as a movie on Cartoon Network, Cartoon Theater.
Okay.
Then, like a week, 2 weeks later, I think I think it was the following week. The following week, they started airing the series in its regular time slot, single episode.
Right.
But they started with the beginning part 1.
Interesting.
So after watching the movie premiere, I then had 3 weeks going back through the beginning, which of course I still watched, but until we finally got a month later was when I finally got the new episode. So yeah, it was definitely the same feeling back in 2002 where it's like I loved the premiere, but I want to get into the episodes, and I had to go sit through the whole beginning again for 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, since I discovered it after the fact, I just was able to binge watch right through there, and it was no problem. But yeah, I could see where that would be frustrating.
Yep. So I believe the only first appearance we have this time is Zor. So now we're through the meat of the cast introductions. So now we'll just be getting.
We have another first, but it's not a first appearance. But I'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay. So in this episode, the battle rages on. He-Man is able to save Teela from the meteorite. He's able to help turn the tide against the evil warriors, and he inspires the newly named Masters of the Universe before heading off to rescue the king. Spoiler alert, it's his dad. While he rescues the king, Man-at-Arms is abducted by Merman's flying fish, and Teela has to save her father in a parallel story. Skeletor and He-Man meet for the first time. They have an epic duel. Skeletor is able to escape using He-Man's sentimentality as his weakness. Teela is able to rescue her father, and He-Man saves the king, and everybody meets back up at the palace for a classic Filmation style ending. So Curtis, we're going to jump right in with you because I know you've been dying to talk about this part. It's been a whole week since the beginning part 2. And, we were left with that shadowy, mysterious man in front of Teela and a meteor bearing down on them.
Yeah, and I kind of talked last time about, He-Man really doesn't know the limit of his powers yet. So he's throwing himself right out there, jumping right in front of a meteor, not knowing if it's going to take him out. Obviously, he's able to stop it, but I think we're going to continue to see that throughout this episode, that he does things that a normal person wouldn't do because it would definitely be super dangerous. And he just throws caution to the wind and goes. So it is interesting, but yeah, he saves her there. And I think for me, that's where the kind of the relationship kind of thing between He-Man and Teela kind of began.
Oh, absolutely.
I never felt that throughout Filmation. Like there was no point throughout Filmation where I'm like, oh, these two are kind of a couple. They really like each other. Like they're going to end up together. But as MYP kind of continues, like this is where I started feeling that a little bit more. I mean, there's one episode of Filmation where he kind of carries her off and stuff, but
Prime of Power, Pawns of the Game Master, there's a lot of flirting.
Yeah.
But again, with Filmation having to do the reset, they're in syndication. They need every episode to basically be a standalone.
Yeah.
There's definitely not as much of it.
You don't build on the character story as much.
Right. You don't have that growth that we're going to see in this series. But I completely agree with you. Just her being in the awe, it's Gwen Stacy saved by Spider-Man, just that. Oh my God. And
well, and it also same thing with the Gwen Stacy thing. It's like, Peter Parker's actually the one that loves her, but he doesn't get the credit. Like he and we're going to see this kind of thing, especially towards the end of this episode where, it's like, Adam would like to have that credit. He would like to be the one that's recognized for his bravery, but not so much.
And again, it's really, we had this discussion last week, but it's Adam jumping here. Adam's jumping in because it's Teela. She doesn't know that, but that's why.
Yeah.
But
I do think it's funny throughout this episode though, like he shows up. There's a shadowy silhouette. They don't know who it is. He stops them, and then they find out that he's He-Man, right?
Yep.
But throughout the rest of the episode, like even the villains are calling him He-Man. Like you just met this guy. Like you don't know. Like, but they're calling him He-Man as if they've known He-Man forever. I think that happens like multiple times throughout this episode, especially Skeletor. Yeah, Skeletor.
Well, no, but
He-Man. Yeah.
Remember, it's jumping ahead. When Skeletor and He-Man first meet, they do the introduction. He goes,
Did I miss that?
Because He-Man, Skeletor says something like, "You don't know who you're dealing with. I am Skeletor, Overlord or Lord of Destruction," and he blasts him.
Yeah.
And then when He-Man knocks it back, he goes, "I am He-Man, Defender of Eternia."
I must have missed that. But even like the heroes though have called him He-Man like for the rest of the episode basically, and it's like you just met this guy. Like I would be calling, hey, that guy. If I'm just saying, if I was in that situation, I'd be like, that guy's pretty awesome. I wouldn't be like He-Man's pretty awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like it just felt a little weird, but it's all right. It's cool.
Well, I didn't know your name for the first year that I knew.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You'd just be like, that.
But maybe if you had jumped in front of a meteorite and smashed it to pieces and then said, "I am Curtis."
Yeah.
Defender
of Earth. Lesson to me to make a better first impression.
Yeah, that's on you. I do love that little look too, jumping back a little bit, like when he smashes the meteorite and just like, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I like that, and again, we're setting up this is a younger He-Man. Filmation He-Man, he'd been around for years. He had it all figured out, But this He-Man is the young learner. He's like you brought up already. We brought Pete Parker. You brought up Billy Batson last episode. Like this He-Man. He is a younger Adam. He is figuring all this out, the limits of his powers and everything else. So, I like that. I like that this He-Man doesn't have all the answers, and I think this is why I like Man at Arms better in this series than in the original, because I feel like he has more of a role because Adam He-Man is really learning.
Like more of a mentorship kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and he's really Man at Arms is leading the Masters, the heroic warriors. Whereas in Filmation, it was pretty much He-Man was doing everything, and Man at Arms was like he had been the. Whereas here, his Man at Arms is really center stage as far as all the Eternos, stuff, and the actual Masters goes, and He-Man's your tank.
Yeah.
So Man at Arms feels more needed in this series.
Yeah. I think after, he destroys the meteor and it like a few minutes go by, but then, Skeletor basically is telling Evelyn, like, hey, enough with the meteors. Like, let's, and that seems like an interesting decision to me because, like, if you go back to the last episode, they were, fighting pretty much one-on-one with the heroic warriors. And then all of a sudden this meteor shower kind of basically put them all at bay. Like the heroic warriors were all on defense at that point. So even though He-Man can stop the meteors, like the rest of them can't. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't continue that and then focus everybody up. Like if you have Evelyn continuing the meteor shower and then you have everybody else focus on He-Man, like maybe you're successful. I don't know. But having her stop that, I feel like puts everybody on the heroic side back in play.
Well, yeah, but He-Man was deflecting the meteorites back at them.
Right.
So it was giving ammo to He-Man is the way
like if you
Triclops looked at it.
Yeah, but let's say you throw, 10 meters at the same time and he deflects one or two of them. You still got 8 through to kind of. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting decision, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, he was causing some havoc for their end as well.
Absolutely. And again, going back to the relationships here, it puts the evil warriors kind of on the defensive because, like they know Stratos, they know Mechanic, they know these guys. It's like, wait, we got a wild card here. And he just punched a freaking 10-foot wide meteor into bits. Like,
right.
Hang on a second here. We need to regroup. So there's that part of it too. He turned the tide psychologically as well, just being that wild card.
Well, and I don't know how well the evil warriors actually gel together as a team.
Absolutely.
In sports, for instance, you can bring in a bunch of superstars to your team, but if they don't have a good relationship with one another, if they don't know how each other operates, it doesn't automatically lead to success. So just because they've got these big, strong characters on their team, like we know that the heroic warriors have worked together even before the peace. They were together. And then Keldor and his forces show up in episode 1. And as far as we know, that's a newly formed group in episode 1. So, and during the time of peace, when the wall's up, we don't have any indication that those evil warriors work together on really anything.
Right.
So it feels like, at least in this battle, that the heroic warriors are working together more as a team and able to trust each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Whereas the evil warriors are just kind of each doing their own thing.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, the evil warriors, they just have a lot more of their own personal wants and desires too. Yeah. Like, they're serving Skeletor, but they are all in it for themselves at the end of the day. Whereas the heroes, they're all, their mission right now is to save King Randover.
Yeah.
And push these forces back. So
I think that some of them have an allegiance to Skeletor, but it's definitely not as much as in the Filmation, they were totally like just his peons.
Yep.
And here you're, even though they're working for him and they may have allegiance to him, they do for sure have their own agendas. So
absolutely. So we get to see the flying fish for the first time. I know I gotta give a shout out to my buddy Sean Scavarna. I know he's sad he's not here to discuss it because this is one of his absolute favorite characters in all of. I'm kidding. I can't get through that. He hates the fish. He absolutely does.
I thought you were serious. I was like, well, more power to him. I guess somebody had to like it. I definitely didn't, but.
Oh, you're a fish hater too, huh?
I don't hate it. I just thought it was really silly. So, That actually wasn't the first that I was thinking of. The first that I was thinking of is coming up, though. But if you got anything else on the fish, have at it.
I was just curious. We definitely got to highlight it here for posterity for later. I actually liked this sequence, Tila, kind of the parallel of, Tila trying to rescue her father. And at the same time, we get to see Man-at-Arms fleshing out his character. They're going more into the Batman, style Man-at-Arms, which is just kind of how his character has progressed. He's got the answer out for everything on his belt. Yeah. But it's a fun sequence. We get to see the hoverboard.
They found a way to incorporate Merman into the episode. That was good.
Yeah, and really have him be a force, know. But yeah, so then we obviously the big meat of this episode is He-Man Skeletor squaring off for the first time.
Before we get there, the first that I wanted to mention is the voice of Clawful, which it's just terrible. I mean, it is just like the redesign of Clawful is so good. Like compared to Filmation, it is night and day. Like it is terrifying, the redesign of Clawful. And then you give him this goofy, stupid voice, very similar to the Ram Man, but I get it on Ram Man. Like Ram Man is supposed to be kind of this like doofus that's bashing his head into things. I get that.
Yeah.
Clawful, they made him seem so stupid. And it just, I hate the voice. It is, out of all the voices that they use, all the casting that they've done, this is my least favorite in the entire series. And it just irritates the crap out of me. And it's the first time we really hear him. And yeah, it's just not good.
No, I agree. And I know we went over this a bit in episode 1, but yeah, even with Ram Man, like he's still more the kind of simple giant type thing. Yeah. But yeah, Clawful is really just, what is going on?
Yeah. Stratos is weird too, where he sounds like Sean Connery, but it's kind of jarring at first, but it's not that one doesn't offend me like the Clawful one. The Clawful one is like, man, you created this like really imposing, scary guy, and then you just make him sound like a doofus. So.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well just left him mute like Battle Cat and just let him just growl all the time.
Yeah.
So. Agreed.
Anyhow, so He-Man and Skeletor.
We get the first face-off. Too much twirling weapons for you again?
Not here. No, I feel like in the jungle in last episode was way more twirling weapons than here. There is some of that with Skeletor, but I don't think it's nearly as bad. I think it actually works for the fight scene. So.
Yeah, I just love, I know I kind of hinted at it last episode. I love the way, He-Man's going at it fully physical and everything. Mm-hmm. He's punching, he's hitting, he's swinging. And Skeletor, he's a much more defensive fighter. He's doing a lot more coming back. He's using his magic to, and the sword flying through the air at He-Man and then fighting him while Skeletor's doing something else. I just love the distinct fighting styles that they have.
Let me go back to something you had just said, because like they're, the evil warriors now are kind of like, who is this guy? Like he just showed up, he's an unknown, all this kind of stuff. And I think that affects the way Skeletor is fighting. Because if you go back to the last episode, Skeletor was very much on the attack when he was fighting Randor. He was not a defensive fighter.
Right.
Like he was bringing it to him. And now I think you're right, where he's like, okay, this guy just smashed a meteor and then sent a bunch of them back at us. There's something going on here. I need to be careful with this. And so I think that changes his fighting style to where he is more on the defensive, but he's holding his own. Like
definitely
he's doing pretty well for, an individual that doesn't have the power of Grayskull. So
no, he absolutely is, and that's what I'm saying. They did a good job of being able to be like, all right, worthy opponent because of the way he does it,
Yeah.
And even when in last episode when he was fighting Randor, that was pretty much all swords. There wasn't a lot because of the history. He knew him, and even
Right.
and because of whatever happened to Keldor to turn him into Skeletor, we might find out later down the line. But like Skeletor is still pretty much in prime fighting, and
Mhm.
we've got Randor. He's got the leg brace now. He's noticeably older, like he has aged normally. Whereas we can tell already that's whatever happened to Keldor has changed him completely.
Well, and on top of that, there's also been this era of peace to where Randor's been sitting on the throne. Like I don't know. There's
Yep.
no indication throughout the last couple episodes that he's been, keeping up with his practice and fighting and doing things like that to keep himself in shape.
Right.
As far as we know, he's just been sitting on the throne, eating, drinking, be merry. So yeah,
Well, yeah,
there's
even
definitely some of that playing into it, I think, as well.
yeah, even if it's not just eat, drink, and be merry, like he had to build a monarchy from the ground up because the
Oh
elders are
yeah,
just like, poof, we're
yeah.
gone. Have fun, King. Wait, what?
Meanwhile,
So
Skeletor's been planning his revenge
this
all this time.
entire time,
Yeah,
right? So you get all these different It's I love how it's all coming together here.
yeah.
I'll get my biggest complaint of this episode out of the way.
Okay.
For you, it was probably Clawful's voice. For me, every time I have watched this episode from the very first time it premiered on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater till now, my biggest complaint is all we see out of the cat fight is a cloud of dust. I would have really loved. I mean, we spent all that time in the jungle with twirling weapons and
Mhm.
everybody silently fighting, and we didn't even get to see what Battle Cat and Panther were really up to. Like,
We did get to see them like kind of circle each other for a second and kind
right.
of eyeing each other down, which that part was cool.
No, I
To
know. And
have
then
a
I'm like,
fight.
I wanted
Yeah,
to see a nice, like,
yeah,
Lion King style. I don't need to be 20 minutes, but like, just a cut back to them, here or there, just to
right.
kind of
We
watch
got
them
more.
go
We
at
got
it.
more of the Looney Tunes Tasmanian
Yes,
Devil type fight. So,
exactly.
yeah,
But yeah, that's we waited because I mean, in Filmation, Panther was in a couple episodes. They kind of went, it's kind of the same thing. They kind of had a little tussle and Diamond Ray disappearance, but like uh, watching them here, it really felt like, oh, this series is really going to go with Battle Cat versus Panther. He-Man and Skeletor were
right.
squaring off for the first time. They were squaring off, but we never really got to see that side of it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that as a kid, I always felt like He-Man and Battle Cat were a pair.
Yeah,
But I never really felt like Skeletor and Panther were like I didn't feel like if I had Skeletor, I had to have Panther too.
right.
You
It
know,
wasn't the sidekick like Battle
it's
Cat.
not this. Yeah, it's not the same thing. But here they made it seem like that's the way it's going to be, and
Yep.
then I don't know that they fully delivered. So
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, it
yeah,
definitely in the beginning, it felt like, I mean, from the second we see Skeletor on his throne, Panther's right there. He comes
right.
down to battle with him. When Skeletor takes off here, he's riding on Panther. Like it felt like that we were gonna see Panther become the number one mount, at least, if nothing
Yeah,
else.
for
Uh,
sure.
and then of course, Skeletor realizing that he can't beat He-Man, at least not right now, unprepared, and that's the other thing. Like you said, we're definitely getting the hints that this Skeletor is a planner. He's a thinker. Like he's, the biggest thing in all this that threw him off was the wild card of He-Man. And once he realizes that he's like, okay, I need to figure out you.
Hmm.
But as soon as he realizes, I mean, he says it. He says, yeah, you're not worried about yourself. But if
Hmm.
I do something to the king here, I think that's going to bother you. And so he
Yeah,
uses that to bargain for his escape. And
yeah. It's like Superman 2 when Zod realizes that Superman's weakness is the people.
yep, exactly.
And so it's like, just start putting the people in jeopardy and you can get Superman to do whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, totally with you.
Yeah, it was a great moment. And then of course Skeletor gets on Panther Ray to ride off. He goes, oh yeah, He-Man, I lied, and he blasts Randor off the cliff. Oh my god, that moment still to this day gets me. It got me back then. It got me now.
So this is where the part where I wanted to kind of get into some as well is the whole cliff thing.
Yes.
So first off, like he blasts him off the cliff, and He-Man sits there for at least a good 2-3 seconds and says something like father or something, and kind of just sits there as he's falling, right? Yep. And then jumps in after him after a few seconds, and the way gravity should work, he should be freaking long gone. But somehow He-Man catches up to him, whatever.
Power Grayskull.
Yeah. And then he, tries to stop, and they deflect, which is cool because he didn't just immediately stop and whatever. Yeah. It kind of was, he doesn't know what things he can and can't do yet. So then he kind of goes off by himself, double hands the sword.
Yep, gets
able
it in
to
there.
Stop, which takes a while to slow down and stop and everything. Meanwhile, Randor still hasn't passed him. He's still up above him, which.
Well, on that one, I will say, remember, so he's got the sword in one hand.
Yep.
He tries to get into the rock. He fails, and they bounce off.
Correct.
They do animate him. He throws Randor up. He doesn't just drop him. He actually throws him up.
Okay, I didn't catch that part.
To give himself time.
I'm just like, there's twice in here, like when he's slowing himself down with the sword, and when he waits 3 or 4 seconds before jumping into the cavern, where it's like he should be gone. Like that.
I'll give you the one when he's processing.
Yeah,
but yeah, on the once he fails, he throws Randor up, and given his strength, so that at least. I don't know if it's completely logical, but at least they made an attempt to okay, he throws him back up, gets it in, and then and even then he doesn't. He's smart enough to not do the Gwen Stacy webline crack where he actually grabs Randor and kind of flips him around so he doesn't have that jerk.
That's
motion.
Cool. I liked that motion.
However, he did grab Randor's bad leg. I don't know if you ever noticed that. He grabs the one with the brace on it to do the flip.
I didn't notice that. But then the other thing I thought was, okay, so these guys have been falling for a good 30, 40 seconds.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, so then Mechanic puts his head down there. How far can Mechanic's neck go? Holy cow. Like he's standing at the top. And these guys have been falling for like 40 seconds now. Unless their gravity is way different than ours, they should have been way down that thing. And Mechanic's neck goes like pretty much all the way down there. And he's like, "Oh yeah, they're down here. Like
they're down here."
Okay.
Stratos comes out and need a
all
lift.
Right. Yeah, and then Stratos does his best Sean Connery and goes down and gets him. So
I know it's not logical at all, but that sequence, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's and as they're falling, Randor goes, "He-Man, you can fly?"
Yeah.
And no.
Well, once again, I don't know that he even knew that before he jumped down there.
Well, and there's a pause there too. He's like, "He-Man, can you fly?" And He-Man pauses for. You think He-Man was trying to fly in that moment before he said no? He's like,
possible.
Hey, no, nope, can't do that.
Nope. Yeah, it's interesting for sure.
Oh.
So
but
and then when he asked like after they do stop, and he's like okay, so basically like how are we getting out of here? And he's like, "Oh, I haven't really thought of that yet."
Right. And I mean, we failed to mention it, but obviously you guys all watched the episode. But the whole time too, Randor's he's handcuffed behind his back. Yeah. So like it's not even like Randor can try. That's the other thing as they're falling. Randor can't try to help grab but yeah, it's great seeing that He-Man, and like you said, he's just doing stuff,
right?
And luckily it all works out here.
And then we end up back at the palace,
as we should.
Yep. And they're kind of talking about it, and who was that guy and what was that all about and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Adam's again the inexperience. Like he hasn't learned yet how to just kind of sit by and let this stuff happen. He's
Mhm.
you can tell he wants
He
everybody to
wants
know.
to talk about it. He wants, yeah.
Yeah,
And then Zora shows up
right. Hey,
and
don't forget.
gives them the like really like the stink eye. Like they're like it is like they focused on that eye for a good 10 seconds or so. Like it was like,
Oh yeah,
hey, you better not say anything. And I think that goes back to kind of what you were talking about earlier with the sorceress, like not being the same like motherly, caring, like I
Mhm.
feel like there is kind of an intimidation thing there where Zora's like looking at Adam going like, you better keep your mouth shut or else
Right.
kind of thing. Yeah. So
And we do have to go to my other complaint. I do have 2 complaints about this episode. Wow. But I dislike how they played Orko initially here. I mean, he almost gives up the secret twice in this
yeah.
episode. And it's like, dude, like I get that Orko's supposed to be the kid character. But
Mhm.
like we've had like 4 people now tell you like don't say anything and you're
Yeah.
still at the drop of a hat like and you'll never guess who He-Man is. And it's like come on, even Orko's not dumb. Like I don't know, that part always
I think
bothered
it's
me.
just immaturity. I think it gets better as the series goes on, if I
It does.
remember.
Yeah.
But I think it's just immaturity at this point and just the shock of the whole thing. But there's also the part in here where, Tila gives her a little cheap shot to Adam about, where he was and all this and that. And not only does that, but does it in front of the entire palace
Right.
to where then Randor goes, yeah, that's what I would like to know. It's like, and this is the problem that I have with Tila. And I get what you're saying. It's kind of a natural reaction. Like they're on the battlefield. He disappears. Where the heck did he go? Why is it? I get that. But to talk to a prince in that manner when you're not royalty, like you're one of the worker bees, like you're one of you work for these people, right? And to talk to the prince that way and to do it and address him in that manner in front of the king,
Yeah.
to make him look bad in front of the king, it just feels out of place. It feels really I don't want to curse, but it feels really B word. Like you I just don't feel like you need to do that there. I think that could be something that's maybe on the side between the two of them. But calling him out and shaming him in front of everybody else is just it's not cool to me. So
I get you. Still didn't bother me yet. We
okay.
might get to a part where it bothers me, but
Okay.
still here. It really felt like we're trying to set up the status quo at this point. And of course, we end at Snake Mountain. Skeletor,
Which looks cool, by the way.
Oh,
with
amazing.
the snake with the lava and everything. Like
Yep.
they did Snake Mountain really well.
Yeah, no, I love the Snake Mountain and Skeletor on his bone throne and just and again here he's like I need to know more about this He-Man. That's his big takeaway here.
Yeah.
Like okay, Randor's a dead end. He doesn't know what's going on, but this He-Man's going to be a problem. I need to get rid of him. Like
Well, it definitely wasn't a Skeletor didn't give up on that fight. He knew he needed to regroup. He needed to reevaluate and see what worked, what didn't work, and where we need to go. Like this is a much more intelligent Skeletor than I think what we were used to in Filmation, where it was just like, okay, that scheme failed, and then next episode we'll try a new one.
Yep.
Like this is a Skeletor that's like, okay, some things went well there, some didn't. Let's go back, let's evaluate, let's kind of go.
I think he's got the chalkboard in the corner, like okay,
yeah,
man,
yeah.
you did this well.
And then Evelyn
you did
gives him
this
the little
bad.
cheap shot, and he's like, well, you think you can do better, like kind of thing, and yeah.
And again, setting up from the very beginning here, we saw it in Filmation too. Evil Lynn has her own desires,
Yeah.
but set up right from the beginning. And that's what Mike Young really had, over Filmation. And this is why I find it hard to compare the two, because Mike Young came into this knowing they were getting this movie and then the episodes. They didn't have to worry about syndication, and they were able to craft some stuff out ahead of time whereas the whole format in Filmation was just different. You know, you couldn't tell those kind of stories in that manner back then. So, but they did take advantage, Mike Young did, and really tried to plant a bunch of seeds here to kind of grow throughout the series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can compare one series versus the other overall.
Yeah.
I think there's individual takeaways that you could say, you know, I liked this character design better than that one, or I liked this voice better than that one, that kind of thing. But the series as a whole, you've got to kind of take it for what it is, because they're completely different.
No, absolutely. So
now, had Mike Young come out ahead of time and said, this is a continuation of what was done in Filmation, and it's just for a new age, but it's going to continue the story, and then it was different, I could see some people being upset. But no, this thing is definitely introduced and begins as a whole new telling of this tale. And so therefore, I think you got to count it as its own thing.
And so, so at the end, the day on August 16th, 2002, I was completely in. I was so excited. I could not wait to see where this series was going. You know, all the redesigns blew me away. The fighting, the animation, the voice acting. I was all in. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, like I said, I discovered it after the fact, and I just binge watched it. But I mean, after the first episode, I was definitely like, okay, first 3 episodes, the first story arc, I was like, all right, I'm good. Let's keep this up. This is going well. So there was nothing.
As opposed to when you watch New Adventures and you watch the first.
I tried to watch like the first 5 episodes multiple times, and I just can't. It's just,
right. So that's what I was like. Even discovering it later when everything was available, you still played the next episode. Yeah, and you don't always do that. So
what was that cartoon? It was like, wasn't it like a religious one or something? It was like the Oh Davy.
There was like a biblical adventures or something.
Yeah, it was like watching something like that. It was just very corny and bad. New Adventures. Like, I'm sorry out there for anybody that liked New Adventures. Please, drop a comment on this and let me know what you liked about it, because I've yet to actually meet somebody that really enjoyed New Adventures and could explain to me what they enjoyed about it. So
that's a story that's a topic for another time. But right now, the beginning, part 3. Anything else you want to discuss about the episode?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
All right.
So excited to get into episode 4. So,
well, in true Cartoon Network fashion, we got to wait 4 weeks before we do episode 4, because now we've got to go back through the beginning.
Well, we should put it on a different channel and at a different time as well.
Yes. We should do that. Sometimes we'll release the episodes on Wednesday. Sometimes we'll release them on Monday. Sometimes we'll do Friday night.
Sometimes it'll be in the morning. Sometimes it'll be in the evening. We do it, drop it like 3 a.m.
All right. It is time for our Power Sword rating. So 3 Power Swords, absolute best, perfect episode. 2 Power Swords, very good, above average. 1 Power Sword is a good, solid episode. We got the Cosmic Enforcer. That's neither good nor bad. That's just there. We got the Havoc Staffs. 1 Havoc Staff is bad. 2 Havoc Staffs is worse. 3 Havoc Staffs is an abysmal episode that should never be viewed by anyone ever. Curtis, the beginning, part 3.
I think I'm going to do 1 Power Sword. I mean,
he's going to go with a Power Sword.
Yeah, it just because this had to be broken up, and we're rating the individual episodes.
Yeah,
and it's not how it was intended to be viewed, and so it's not a complete story. It's so therefore it just is rating it by itself. Yeah. I can't go more than 1.
Gotcha. And it is a good episode. It does everything it needs to do.
Yeah.
It gets you pumped up for the next episode. And again, I'm trying to think the long game, because I don't want to be like, oh, this is a 2 Power Sword, but then I have an episode later where I'm like, well, now that has to be a 2 because I gave this a 2. I think I gotta be consistent with you. I gotta give it 1 power sword. It is a good episode. It is a solid episode. I've got a couple complaints, but nothing major. But it hasn't done anything above average. Like
Right.
the beginning is the baseline, in my opinion. Like, so I had 1 power sword all the way throughout. You had 1 for part 1. You had a cosmic enforcer for part 2, and you had 1 for part 3. So I think that pretty much takes us to a 1 power sword average on the beginning, which I think is a solid baseline for the series.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I was looking at it, in order to give it more than 1 power sword, I would have to think that it's an episode that I would enjoy watching by itself. I would like, as a standalone episode, I could see myself going back and just watching this one because I enjoyed it, and it's not quite to that level.
Yeah.
So,
but nothing bad. A power sword is even 1 power sword still turns Adam into He-Man. So
that's true.
All right, guys, stay tuned. Next time we've got episode 4, The Courage of Adam. We're out of the beginning.
Isn't it the Curtis of Adam? No. Oh, okay.
No, that wouldn't make any sense. So yes, join us next time, and Curtis will be happy to be out of the beginning.
There you go.
Till next time, guys. Go watch it on Amazon Prime.
Oh, come on.